Well, joining me now to discuss this is Junior Smart OBE, who is head of the SOS Gangs Project at the St Giles Trust, which helps people create a better future for themselves. Junior, thank you so much for joining me. So how do these gangs recruit children? Where do they find them? And do they have a specific type of person that they will look for?
Oh, wow. So where do these groups find the children?
Yeah.
They, unfortunately, the way the things are right now, young people and the situations that they're involved in increasingly make them more susceptible to these groups for recruitment. And these groups recruit young people online. Practically every single social media platform I've seen has got some sort of recruitment aspect to it. You'll see adverts, big sums of money, there's cash to be made. If you look at mainstream media, trapping is quite fashionable now. Everyone's talking about bandos and shotting and drugs and all of that sort of stuff. It's entered mainstream media, which means that for a person with reduced availability of choice, let's just say, because the need is out there, there are young people. National Youth Association are talking about over 1 million families entering into poverty this year alone. What does a young person do when they've got limited availability of choice? They don't want to ask their parents for something because they know that their parents are already struggling, their parents are already working. So actually, it's far more easier to look at something like that and see the money that can be made as attractive and unfortunately, this is what we're seeing time and time again. Young people getting lured into this with promises of easy money, and then next thing you know, they're trapped by the group. And the key word there is exploitation. These are young people that are going to ultimately take the risks, ultimately get criminalised, and their lives are ultimately going to be impacted in a negative way.
How can parents spot if their child is perhaps being sucked into this? Because I'm sure that some of these kids will come from pretty good homes, but they may be just lured into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've been working with young people involved in gangs and criminal exploitation now for close to 18 years. And the reality is as easy as it is to say, right, actually, it's the marginalised, it's the people that are in poverty, the people that are less financially affluent. Actually, we're seeing much more numbers of young people coming from dual-parent households, affluent backgrounds. Literally, the drive has been partly by these groups because they know that these affluent families will take care of what they call drug debts. But I thought your video was really interesting. The British Transport Police are fantastic at what they do, and they know actually that the people that they arrest are the ones that are being exploited. Now, what that video doesn't show is what happens to those young people after, because those young people and adults that were caught with drugs, that will actually create a drug debt. And it's not as simple as just by actually you've broken the law, let's criminalise the law and the justice system. Actually, these gangs, these groups that have recruited these people, they will say to them, well, now actually you owe us those drugs, that money that you've lost. And the story for us has always been about what happens to those people after, because the reality is drug debts are like how everybody else thinks of debts. They won't be written off. Those young people will face violence, they'll face consequences, and they'll often have to go back to working for those people to pay that debt off. And that's the stories that nobody really talks about. So breaking that cycle is a really, really key, important factor. With regards to parents and what they can do, I would simply say to parents, listen, this is the reality. You know your children. You need to know where they are, you need to know who they're with, and you need to know what they are up to at all times. And although this is harder, we're living in a cost of living crisis. Parents are having to work longer and harder. So obviously they're thinking, well, I can't necessarily be around. The reality is we have to try and all work together. And this is about agencies linking hands, really focusing our resources. Agencies on the ground are working off reduced resources as well. And it's really about sharing information, and it's about connecting families with services that can help and support them.
And very briefly then, for those that are caught, as you said, that they end up with a drug debt ultimately, are the police working to help those young people to get out of this debt? Because ultimately they'll catch them, they are just the mules, obviously, where it's coming from is somewhere else. Are they doing anything to support the young people that they catch?
This is a real challenge, I think, for law enforcement individuals. They've got the best intents. I've worked with law enforcement individuals. We've got some fantastic partners out there that do some terrific work. But the reality is, we don't know how many county lines are in operation. They can only give us rough estimates. We don't know how many young people are involved. And the reality is at that point of arrest, that point of stop and search, that none of that person's background will be taken into account. That's just the reality of the way it is. So the best thing that we can actually do for young people, the best way we can serve young people is actually by educating them and supporting them and training agencies in this field to know what to look for, and also how to really get the most out of their engagement, get the most out of the organisations that are sitting around the table. There's no quick wins and there's no easy ways out, unfortunately, because by the time a young person is transporting drugs, they're already in a point where they can be criminalised on the spot. We can't just expect somebody to turn to the police and say, actually, I need your help, because if they then, that's the way the grooming and exploitation works. By doing so, they'd criminalise themselves, they put themselves at more risk, and they put themselves actually, I'd say, at physical harm by the gangs. So it's actually about really kind of getting in before they get involved and showing them like these are the steps out.
Educate them. I'll just say that shot looks like you're actually in my house, because it's the same background as you when I'm doing my Zoom calls. Thank you very much, Junior. Lovely to talk to you. That's Junior Smart OBE. He's head of SOS Gangs Project in St Giles Trust. Thank you very much.